Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Mass Effect 3 Legendary Edition. Now, I realized that I've kind of neglected the Codex, so this episode will be nothing but me reading the Codex entries. If you're not interested in that, you can just skip it, and the normal gameplay will resume from the next one. Now, I will omit the entries that were already in Mass Effect 1 and 2, which is actually possibly the majority of them. So let me go through everything and I'll just skip whatever I have already read in the previous games. So for example, for the Council species, it's pretty much just a redo of what was in the previous entries. There is no new entry on the Proteans, despite there being a Protean in your team.
In the early 22 centuries, the Elcor, the Geth, the Hanar are when the Asar, the Krogan, driven from the Volus are...
Those are all, the same as they were in Mass Effect 1 and 2.
Thresher Maws are
so are those. Citadel and Galactic Government.
The Citadel is Spectres are agents.
This was already in Mass Effect 1 as well.
When humanity won a position on the Council for its part in defending the Citadel, the Alliance chose Captain David Anderson for the position. Udina became his advisor. Anderson eventually quit over frustrations with Council politics, and the Alliance named Udina to the office.
Okay, this is interesting because only this paragraph was actually read, only this paragraph was actually read, is what I meant. So let me read the rest. Donald Udina is the lone human on the Citadel Council. Although he has a keen ability for furthering his own political career, Udina has long promoted humanity's interests first and foremost in the galactic arena. Despite his unwavering focus on human interests, Councillor Udina is usually willing to collaborate with the other species. Even his opponents concede that Udina gives fair consideration to non-human proposals, so long as humanity also benefits.
Earth, the home world and capital of humanity, was enjoying a new golden age before the Reapers attacked. Disease, pollution, and other social ills were on the decline, thanks to technological advances and a wealth of resources from the colonies. Earth was an inspiration even to alien cultures, resulting in influence out of proportion with humanity's brief time on the galactic stage. The Reaper attack has put an end to any semblance of this former life. The great cities of Earth are storehouses of human DNA for the Reapers to harvest. Reaper gunships, capable of megaton-scale firepower, annihilated industrial centers in seconds. The militaries of Earth's disparate nation-states have retained only partial communication with the system's alliance fleets, leaving the planet's resistance efforts uncoordinated and vulnerable. The loss of the comm buoy network has cut off Earth's economy from the rest of the galaxy, sending shockwaves across galactic markets and a significant obstacle to receiving aid.
You can see the Reapers destroying London here. Human diplomatic relations. Was this an entry in the previous games?
A political economic pact for collective colonial security, the Alliance is the central galactic institution of human society. The Alliance gained associate membership to the Citadel Council in 2165 and full membership in 2183, with Ambassador David Anderson representing humanity. Human political economic relationships vary between combative and lucrative. The Turians, who'd fought humans during the 2157 First Contact War, have become valuable trade partners, despite residual social hostility. Other relationships are even more complicated. The rapid rise of human political influence on the Council, achieving in decades what others waited or are still waiting centuries to acquire, has galvanized suspicion and resentment against humanity. That negativity is vastly outweighed by the respect and trust humanity earned by saving the Council during the 2183 attack on the Citadel, at the cost of Alliance cruisers Cairo, Cape Town, Emden, Jakarta, Madrid, Seoul, Shenyang, and Warsaw, and their 2,400 crew.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this was an entry in the previous games. I will cross-check it when editing.
The Systems Alliance is an independent supranational government.
This for sure was an entry, actually. Known associates. I don't think this was even a category.
Admiral Stephen Hackett is a decorated officer in the Systems Alliance, currently assigned to Arcturus Station on the far side of the Sol Relay. In the battle for the Citadel, Admiral Hackett commanded the 5th Fleet. Following that victory, he was promoted to head of the Alliance military. Hackett was born to a single mother in Buenos Aires in 2134. When his mother died in the pandemic of 2146, he was placed in the Advanced Training Academy for Juveniles, where his superior talents in science and leadership quickly became evident. Hackett enlisted in 2152, volunteering for high-risk missions to colonize space beyond the Sol Relay. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant on Arcturus Station in 2156, and soon proved his ability in the First Contact War. His rare ascent from enlisted man to admiral remains an Alliance legend. Admiral David Edward Anderson is a career military officer in the Systems Alliance Navy. Born in London in 2137, he later moved to Arcturus Station and became the first graduate of the Alliance's now renowned N7 Marine program. Anderson is one of the Alliance's most decorated Special Forces operatives and served with honor during the First Contact War. He was the original captain of the SSV Normandy before relinquishing command to his XO, Commander Shepard. After the Alliance victory in the Battle of the Citadel, Anderson briefly served as the Citadel's first human counselor. He soon became embroiled in a Cerberus plot to abduct his friend Kaylee Sanders, however, and learned that he was unable to live a life without action. He stepped down as counselor and returned to the military to prepare for the Reaper invasion. The Alliance Parliament named Donald Udina as his successor.
I don't think you actually learned that much about Anderson's conflict with Cerberus in-game. It might be explored in some supplementary materials, because I know that there are books in the Mass Effect franchise, as well as comics and stuff, but I have not read any of them.
Dr. Liara Tassoni is an Asari information broker with a background in scientific research on Prothean technology. Born on Thessia in 2077, she is the only child of the late matriarch Benezia. Although mother and daughter became estranged in the years before Benezia was indoctrinated by the Reaper known as Sovereign. Tassoni is also a highly trained biotic who served under Commander Shepard aboard the SSV Normandy before the ship was destroyed in a collector attack. Before she became involved in galactic affairs, Dr. Tassoni spent 50 years researching the Protheans' technology and the mystery of their extinction. She now divides her time between uncovering Prothean ruins and consulting with noteworthy representatives of the various Citadel races. The Enhanced Defense Intelligence, or EDI, serves as an information source and cyber warfare defense system on the rebuilt Normandy SR-2. The ship's crew can access EDI at any terminal or through radio contact. During an attack from a collector vessel, pilot Jeff Joker Moreau gave EDI full access to the Normandy systems, allowing the ship to escape. Although EDI retains the control that Moreau gave her, she is usually content to advise the organic crew members who fly and maintain the ship. Garrus Vakarian is a noted Turian sharpshooter and combat engineer. He was born on Palaven and became a Citadel security officer like his father, but left the Force when superiors shut down his investigation into the rogue Spectre Saren Arterius. Vakarian eventually discovered that Saren had been indoctrinated by the Reaper known as Sovereign. Vakarian eventually found his way to the criminal haven of Omega and assumed the name Archangel. There, he and a small group of operatives worked to disrupt the settlement's powerful mercenary groups until Shepard recruited him. The Turian narrowly survived the Second Normandy's attack on the Collectors. More recently, Vakarian has become the head of a Turian task force focused on preparing for the Reaper invasion. Major Caden Alenko is a human biotic and an officer in the Systems Alliance. He served as staff lieutenant under Commander Shepard on the SSV Normandy during the Battle of the Citadel, and now heads the Special Operations Biotics Division at the Alliance Warfare Center. An Alliance tribunal recently called on Alenko to testify about his experience with the Reapers. Alenko suffers from severe headaches because of the early model L2 biotic implants that he was given as a child. The L2 implants have since been discontinued due to the risk of crippling neurological damage. Dr. Morden Solis is a master geneticist and former operative for the Solarian Special Tasks Group. Dr. Solis is well known for his work in perpetuating the genophage, a biological weapon that almost completely sterilized the Krogan species. He eventually left the STG to open a clinic on Omega, where his combat skills kept the clinic safe and operational amid Omega's lawless society. In 2185, Commander Shepard recruited Dr. Solis to research the Collectors and the Reapers. He was a member of the Normandy crew that traveled beyond the Omega-4 relay to attack the Collectors. He survived the mission, but his current whereabouts are unknown. Flight Lieutenant Jeff Joker Moreau is a respected pilot with the Alliance Navy. Born and raised on Arcturus Station, he is widely considered to be the best helmsman in the Systems Alliance. Moreau enlisted with the Navy directly out of school and quickly gained the respect of his superiors. He served as pilot of both the Normandy SR-1 and its successor, the SR-2, and was at their respective helms during the Battle of the Citadel and the assault on the Collectors. Moreau suffers from Vrolik syndrome, a rare debilitating disorder also known as brittle bone disease. Miranda Lawson is a high-ranking former Cerberus operative and a human biotic. Lawson headed Project Lazarus, the Cerberus operation that brought Commander Shepard back from the brink of death after the first Normandy was destroyed. Lawson is herself an example of the achievements possible through genetic engineering. She was created in 2150 through manipulation of her father's DNA. Her entire physical and mental composition was deliberately engineered, including a longer lifespan and a superior immune system. Lawson accompanied Commander Shepard on the maiden voyage of the Normandy SR-2 and was part of the crew responsible for the defeat of the Collectors. She has since left Cerberus. Her current whereabouts are unknown. Dr. Karen Chakwas is a trauma surgeon and a major in the Alliance Navy. She served on the SSV Normandy under both Captain Anderson and Commander Shepard, and was aboard the ship when it was destroyed by the Collectors. She later quit the Alliance in order to rejoin Shepard on the Cerberus-built Normandy SR-2. Along with most of the Second Normandy's crew, Dr. Chakwas was kidnapped by the Collectors and taken beyond the Omega-4 relay, where Commander Shepard eventually rescued her. After the Alliance impounded the Normandy SR-2, an inquiry found that Dr. Chakwas had no significant role in or provable knowledge of Cerberus's criminal activities. She has since rejoined the Alliance.
Organizations.
In recent years, the pro-human syndicate known as Cerberus has seen its influence grow galaxy-wide. The largely untraceable organization now includes private intelligence agencies, biotics laboratories, research facilities, and the lucrative corporations that provide a front for it all. Cerberus's charismatic leader, known only as the Elusive Man, drives the organization's philosophy and interests. The level of secrecy he maintains puts professional intelligence agencies to shame. As Cerberus grows, so too does public distrust of the organization. Some commentators have remarked that Cerberus is not so much pro-human as it is anti-alien. Others question the blind loyalty of its employees. The Elusive Man is a human loyalist focused on advancing the interests of his species, whatever the cost to non-humans and reportedly humans. The Citadel Council regards him as a fanatic who poses a serious threat to galactic security. The reclusive tycoon is the head of Cerberus, an organization that furthers his pro-human agenda throughout the galaxy. His views have led him into questionable alliances. Recent rumors go so far as to suggest that the Elusive Man may even have allied with the Reapers.
Planets and locations.
The John Grissom Academy, founded in 2176, is the Alliance's premier school for young human biotics. The institution is housed in a space station in orbit over the human colony of Elysium. Its main program, the Ascension Project, is designed both to train and monitor young biotics, as well as help them integrate into society after graduation. Unlike the project's previous incarnation, Biotic Acclimation and Temperance Training, or BAT, the training is not exclusively military in nature. The Academy also employs scientific personnel, including Dr. Kaylee Sanders, to develop synthetic intelligence systems and biotic amplifiers like the new L4 implants. Alternating between large oceans and land masses covered in flora, the Solarian homeworld Surkesh is known for its humid climate and lush vegetation. As with the rainforests that once covered Earth, the planet's many forests enjoy a rich biodiversity. The Solarian desire for intellectual stimulation drove them long ago to explore every aspect of their environment, developing ways to thrive without consequences detrimental to their habitat. The areas near major cities and industrial centers are meticulously maintained, with an eye towards ensuring that sunlight penetrates to the ground level, and that established paths through the jungle are kept clear for travel. Burngrass, a soil-enriching and adaptable weed native to Surkesh, has become a major export because of its value for terraforming. Tuchanka, the Krogan homeworld, boasts extreme temperatures, virulent diseases, and predatory fauna. Around 1900 BCE, the Krogan discovered atomic weapons and promptly sent their planet into a nuclear winter. The majority of the population retreated to underground bunkers, and Krogan culture slipped into a dark age, dominated by tribal clans. In 80 CE, decades into the Rachni Wars, the Solarian Union made first contact with the primitive Krogan and initiated a cultural uplift to shape them into a modern army capable of confronting the Rachni. During this uplift, the Solarians constructed the Shroud facility on Tuchanka to shield the planet from harmful forms of solar radiation. Later, during the Krogan rebellions, reproductive rates were curtailed by the genophage, ensuring the Krogan remained a species in decline and Tuchanka a desolate wasteland.
Ships and vehicles.
Cerberus built the Normandy SR-2 as a second-generation version of the Alliance frigate SSV Normandy after the Collectors destroyed the original. The SR-2's many alterations produced a craft nearly double the original size, requiring an even larger Tantalus drive core to compensate. Its state-of-the-art Kodiak shuttle can make landings the original Normandy could not attempt. The Enhanced Defense Intelligence, an AI known colloquially as EDI, coordinates many of the ship's combat functions, assisting and even supplanting human piloting. The Alliance has recently appropriated and refurbished the SR-2. In addition to tight beam communicators, the Quantum Entanglement Communicator, QEC, provides instantaneous contact with Alliance Command. Originally created to covertly insert Alliance Marines into hostile environments, the UT-47 shuttle has since been sold to allies, recovered by enemies, and had its specifications stolen by spies. In one form or another, this durable transport is now used in all corners of the galaxy. A-model Kodiaks feature a front-mounted mass accelerator cannon that can be used in an anti-vehicular role. Since the shuttle lacks proper gun ports, soldiers often open the side hatch to fire on enemies. This is discouraged in Alliance manuals since it exposes the interior to return fire. Flying the 47A during atmospheric combat requires considerable skill. The pilot must reduce the vehicle's mass for speed and handling while maintaining enough mass to resist recoil, incoming fire, and inclement weather. More than one pilot has overstressed the Kodiak's field generator and ended up on the battlefield instead of above it.
Okay, those 3 upgrades I have already read about in Mass Effect 2.
Asari made cyclonic after the Battle of the Citadel.
Technology.
Biotics is the ability, when subjected to element zero, can once believed. Metagel is a Omni-tools are handheld devices that combine a computer microframe, sensor analysis pack, and manufacturing fabricator. The Mars archives describe a superweapon that the Alliance has named the Crucible, which exploits the technology of Mass Effect relays. Beyond the basic principles, however, researchers know little about how the weapon actually works. One popular theory suggests that since relays can transfer matter and energy across the galaxy with little regard for distance, it may be possible to create a weapon for which range is barely a factor. Duplicating the advanced science used to build the relays has proven difficult, however. If the Crucible were completed, the challenge would become tuning the weapon to kill a Reaper halfway across the galaxy without inflicting unthinkable levels of collateral damage. What is clear is that the Crucible's construction is a massive effort, drawing resources from throughout explored space. Staggering financial costs have been disregarded in the common effort to create something, anything, that can stop the Reapers. The genophage bioweapon was created to end the Krogan rebellions. The Turians fought the Krogan to a standstill, but the sheer weight of Krogan numbers indicated they could not be stopped through conventional means. The Turians collaborated with the Solarians to engineer a genetic counter to the Krogan's rapid breeding. The genophage virus replicated by eating key genetic sequences, altering every cell of Krogan physiology, so the Krogan could not use gene therapy to fix the affected tissues. Once a genophage strain could replicate, the Mars archives describe the genophage bioweapon was created to end the Krogan rebellions. The Turians fought the Krogan to a standstill, but the sheer weight of Krogan numbers indicated they could not be stopped through conventional means. The Turians collaborated with the Solarians to engineer a genetic counter to the Krogan's rapid breeding. The genophage virus replicated by eating key genetic sequences, altering every cell of Krogan physiology, so the Krogan could not use gene therapy to fix the affected tissues. Once a genophage strain could replicate no more, it would starve and die, limiting mutation and contamination. In addition, the created genetic flaw is hereditary. The resulting mutation made only 1 in 1,000 Krogan pregnancies carry to term, reducing offspring viability rather than fertility. Krogan warlords fought battles over the females able to carry children to term. The release of the genophage is still controversial and bitterly debated in many circles. It may be possible to reverse the genophage by extracting an immunity from the genetic data of a cured Krogan female. A Solarian geneticist named Malin, a former student of Dr. Morden Solis, discovered the cure through unethical experimentation on live subjects. The complexity and durability of the genophage derives from biochemical countermeasures that the Solarians wove into the plague in an attempt to make the sterilization incurable. No one is certain of how Malin circumvented the countermeasures, but his work was complete enough to allow replication of his results. In its original form, the cure restored fertility but severely compromised the immune system. This resulted in slow, painful death for all but one of Malin's test subjects. If the beneficial aspects of the cure can be isolated, a specially tailored virus could repair the affected genes in other Krogan.
The Reapers.
The Reaper called Harbinger is believed to be the oldest and largest in the Reaper Armada. From the reaches of dark space, Harbinger managed to control the Collectors, a race of human-sized insectoid bipeds, as it sent them on a campaign to kill and gather humans from vulnerable colonies. The Collectors became a terrifying force in the galaxy, responsible for the murder of hundreds of thousands. Surviving colonists have described the tone of Harbinger's threats heard through the Collectors as they attacked as visceral and terrifying. Alliance intelligence has tentatively identified Harbinger as one of the Reapers leading the attack on Earth. A myth common to several cultures in the galaxy, Reapers were once imagined as space monsters that consumed entire stars. Archaeologists who searched for the sources of such myths found little besides the themes of all-consuming devils that are common to primitive cultures. Although accurate information about the Reapers remains scarce, the galaxy now knows that the Reapers are not a myth. They are a real and devastating threat. Sovereign was the first Reaper encountered by the modern Citadel races. Military leaders initially assumed that Sovereign was a Geth or Prothean flagship commanded by Saren Arterius, a rogue Spectre. The truth was far more alarming. The massive ship was itself intelligent, and Saren proved to be under its control. The attacks by Sovereign against Eden Prime and the Citadel removed any uncertainty about the Reaper's technological superiority. Sovereign's formidable shielding and firepower allowed it to hold off the combined fleets of the Citadel, and its mass effect fields proved powerful enough to let the enormous vessel land on a planet's surface. Sovereign's mission, to open a mass relay that would transport the other Reapers from dark space, proved its undoing. During the Battle of the Citadel, Sovereign linked its consciousness to Saren's. When Saren's death corrupted the signal and shut down Sovereign's shields, Sovereign's destruction soon followed. Reaper indoctrination is an insidious means of corrupting organic minds, reprogramming the brain through physical and psychological conditioning using electromagnetic fields, infrasonic and ultrasonic noise, and other subliminal methods. The Reaper's resulting control over the limbic system leaves the victim highly susceptible to its suggestions. Organics undergoing indoctrination may complain of headaches and buzzing or ringing in their ears. As time passes, they have feelings of being watched and hallucinations of ghostly presences. Ultimately, the Reaper gains the ability to use the victim's body to amplify its signals, manifesting as alien voices in the mind. Indoctrination can create perfect deep cover agents. A Reaper's suggestions can manipulate victims into betraying friends, trusting enemies, or viewing the Reaper itself with superstitious awe. Should a Reaper subvert a well-placed political or military leader, the resulting chaos can bring down nations. Long-term physical effects of the manipulation are unsustainable. Higher mental functioning decays, ultimately leaving the victim a gibbering animal. Rapid indoctrination is possible, but causes this decay in days or weeks. Slow, patient indoctrination allows the thrall to last for months or years. The Citadel races have classified the known variants of Reapers into 4 types. Capital ships are Sovereign-class Reapers 2 kilometers in length. They typically target the dreadnoughts, defense installations, and industrial cities of organic civilizations. Experts believe the Reapers harvest a single species of organics during each cycle of extinction to create these massive ships. Some capital ships are capable of launching small drones equivalent to fighters. Destroyers are 160 meters long and, in astounding numbers, make up the bulk of the Reaper fleet. They engage cruisers and other smaller ships, as well as communications posts and enemy command centers. Research suggests destroyers are created from those species that are not harvested to make capital ships. Troop transports carry husks to unconquered planets and bring victims of the harvest to Reaper processing centers. They vary in length from 200 meters to 1 kilometer, but unlike capital ships and destroyers, do not appear to be self-aware. Instead, other Reapers operate troop transports remotely. Processors, also called slaughter ships, are mobile centers for mass DNA harvesting. Like troop transports, processors appear to be remotely operated by sapient Reapers. The Brute is a hulking amalgamation of Turian and Krogan victims of the Reapers. Because tissue from dextroprotein species like the Turians is incompatible with levoprotein species like the Krogan, implants regulate the Brute's body chemistry to combat organ rejection. It is the fusion of Turian military skill and Krogan blood rage that makes the Brute such a formidable enemy, capable of destroying armored vehicles to get to the soldiers inside. Troops are advised to keep their distance and, whenever possible, not engage a Brute alone. Cannibals are frontline Reaper units created from corrupted Batarians. The nickname refers to their propensity to devour the bodies of fallen comrades. This triggers a biochemical process through which the cannibals spontaneously heal themselves and grow new chitinous armor. The transformation also appears to give cannibals a greater awareness of their surroundings, leading to more strategic behavior and careful use of battlefield cover. The sight of a Reaper harvester in flight nearby is one of the first indications that a Reaper invasion is underway. Their massive wingspan allows them to quickly cover the distance between them and their prey. In the harvester's mouth are two heavy guns that fire in an alternating pattern. The harvester's most fearsome quality, however, is that its appearance guarantees that Reaper ground troops are not far behind. Husks are the aggressive, mindless foot soldiers of the Reaper armies. They are created by impaling either living or dead humans on mechanical spikes that rapidly extract water and trace minerals and replace them with cybernetics. These cybernetics reanimate the lifeless flesh and tissue, transforming the bodies into horrifying killing machines. The Reapers use large groups of husks to overwhelm the enemy. The husks' inability to feel pain, as well as their tendency to attack in groups, makes them particularly deadly adversaries. Marauders are harvested Turians that command and protect other Reaper troops. The lean, armored creatures present a significant threat in and of themselves, but they are especially dangerous when leading a Reaper task force. Alliance Marines have observed Marauders fortifying husks and cannibals by enveloping them in a ribbon of energy that forms a scabby shell of armor. For this reason, when Alliance soldiers encounter a Marauder alongside husks or cannibals, standing orders are to target the Marauder first. Ravagers are former Rachni that the Reapers have transformed into heavy artillery through a process of implantation and genetic modification. As walking organic turrets, they can sustain and inflict considerable damage. Ravagers bear egg sacs that continuously spawn swarmers. If the sacs are destroyed either during combat or upon the Ravager's death, their entire contents burst forth to charge the enemy and explode on contact. A dead Ravager expels a caustic gas and an acidic puddle. Alliance scientists have theorized that it is easiest for the Reapers to maintain control over units of Rachni genetic extraction because of the species' neurological predisposition for hive mind consensus.
Weapons, armor, and equipment.
The Reaper weapon, nicknamed Black Star, is so advanced that Alliance scientists can only offer speculation about how it works. The gun appears to exploit an Element Zero core and mass effect fields to fire gravitational singularities, micro black holes that revert to their natural lethality when they impact a solid object. Researchers theorize that the blast tears apart the strong nuclear forces that hold the target's atoms together, resulting in a localized fusion reaction in light atoms and a localized fission reaction in heavy atoms. If that hypothesis is correct, the weapon alters nuclei, thus changing the chemical composition of the target. This destroys organic tissue, corrodes surviving armor, and leaves a visible trail of light-emitting particles. Although some might argue that the Black Star's single-launch capability makes it a liability, its capacity for utter destruction is essential when the user requires large-scale, instantaneous damage. Before the introduction of the M560 Hydra, missile launchers either focused on bringing down a single armored target or simultaneously neutralizing multiple unarmored opponents. With the Hydra, a soldier no longer needs to choose between the two. The Hydra releases a barrage of miniature missiles, each guided by an independent homing system that seeks out exposed enemies. On impact, 3 shaped charges per missile explode in sequence. The first overloads the target's kinetic barriers before the second destroys its armor, clearing a path for the third warhead to detonate inside the target. Although melee combat applications for the Omni tool are almost as old as the device itself, the feature was largely unused prior to the Reaper invasion. The need to take on multiple husks in close quarters forced the Alliance to develop ways to enhance the tool's offensive capability. The most common melee design is the Omni-Blade, a disposable silicon carbide weapon flash-forged by the tool's mini-fabricator. The transparent, nearly diamond-hard blade is created and suspended in a mass effect field safely away from the user's skin. Warning lights illuminate the field so the searing hot blade only burns what it is intended to: the opponent. More technically adept soldiers frequently modify their Omni tools to maximize stopping power through electrical, kinetic, or thermal energy. Some troops integrate the weapon with their kinetic barriers, transforming the Omni tool into a wrist-mounted bludgeon. Others fabricate flammable gases, held in place by a mass effect field and ignited upon impact. All prove deadly surprises for opponents who expect a disarmed Alliance warrior.
Okay, so now onto the secondary entries. As with previously, I will discard, not read the ones that I've already read. For example, the Ragnar entry was read by me in the previous games, as was this, and this, and this. Now, Krogan Rebellions, I am pretty sure that I read that, but Krogan's ancient history is actually new. The lack of adequately preserved archives presents a significant obstacle to the research into ancient Krogan history. Nevertheless, recent archaeological discoveries have shed new light on the topic, revealing a society once rich with cultural, architectural, and artistic accomplishments. Newly discovered ruins reveal that the Krogan had particularly advanced understanding of structural and geotechnical engineering as compared to the other cultures at similar stages of development. Old Krogan architecture demonstrates seismic loading techniques that would have both resisted earthquakes and diffused the small-scale vibrations from the vehicles in their sprawling cities. Curiously, however, Tuchanka has little natural tectonic activity. Instead, the researchers believe that the ancient Krogans were concerned with safe cohabitation with one of the planet's apex predators, Kalros, the mother of all treasure maws. Prior to the Genophage, Krogan population growth was limited by predation, disease, and war. Even so, the birth rate exploded once the Krogan achieved industrialization, leading to the wars over resources and living space. Other species on Tuchanka suffered greatly as the Krogan expanded. When the Krogan ran out of land, they settled into the arms race that ended in nuclear devastation. Tuchanka's relatively short golden age was at an end, but this ancient history may yet aid the modern Krogan. Some of the techniques and technology discovered in the ruins could be used to improve the standard colonization equipment, signaling economic renewal for the Krogan at last. Citadel and Galactic Government, Citadel Council and Citadel Space, I read both of those. Humanity and Systems Alliance. Alliance News Network. Founded during the early decades of human space exploration, the Alliance News Network was originally a low-profile news organization known mostly for a series of exposés on the First Contact War. With a focus on galaxy-wide reporting, the ANN opened bureaus on planets across known space, winning a few awards for excellence and earning a multi-species audience. The Alliance News Network has never been funded by the Systems Alliance, despite what its name might imply. This led to regular confusion among those not in the know, although the network's high-profile sale to a media conglomerate made the ownership structure clearer. The new management has opted for a more sensational approach. This is particularly obvious from the changes to its roster of reporters, with a few of the network's luminaries retiring or joining other news organizations. The network's increasingly lurid programming has gained wide attention and as well as sorely needed ratings, all the proof that the management needed to validate its scores. Nonetheless, ANN insists that integrity and credibility are inviolable standards in the newsroom. Battlespace is among ANN's highest-rated programs, known for a particularly titillating breed of reporting. Among the show's most noteworthy segments are Diana Aller's dispatches from the front lines. The network calls her reports gritty and realistic, but she has been criticized for her unabashed focus on the violence of war. Even critics of Aller's agree, however, that despite her often graphic visuals, the facts she reports are just that. Facts. Okay, I read this about the First Contact War, and I read the timeline. Systems Alliance Special Operations. I don't think I read this. The Interplanetary Combatives Training is the Systems Alliance premier school for leadership and combat expertise. The Interplanetary Combatives Academy, sometimes called the N School or the Villa, recruits officers from every branch of human militaries to partake in grueling courses at Villa Militar in Rio de Janeiro. Initially, candidates train for more than 20 hours per day, leading small combat teams through hostile terrain with little sleep or food. Trainees who do well are awarded an internal designation of N1 and are invited to return. Subsequent courses, N2 to N6, are often held off-planet and include instruction in zero-G combat, military freefall, parachuting, jetpack flight, combat diving, combat instruction, linguistics, and frontline trauma care for human and alien biology. The highest grade of training, N6, provides actual combat experience in conflict zones throughout the galaxy. If the trainee survives these scenarios in admirable and effective fashion, he finally receives the coveted N7 designation. N7 is the only ICT designation that may be worn on field or dress uniforms. There is little shame in failing an N course. The training is so extreme that even qualifying for N1 elevates an officer to a position of respect. The universal prestige of merely attending the academy helps to restrain trainers from taking excessive risks in pursuit of higher honors. Although ICT qualification by itself does not guarantee higher rank, those officers who are able to complete the program are typically well suited to senior positions of leadership. Mass Effect 3 From the Ashes. Eden Prime. To be honest, I must have read an entry on Eden Prime. Like, I will read it and then compare it with what it said in the previous games. In 2051, as the first anxious settlers made their way through the new Sharon mass relay, many of them wondered whether the reality of life on Eden Prime could possibly live up to the stories of pristine landscapes that drew them there. What the colonists found exceeded their expectations. The stable climate and compatible biology made the colony almost instantly viable. Over the next few decades, several millions of humans immigrated to Eden Prime, and a primarily agrarian culture developed. The new colony quickly became not only self-sufficient, but began exporting goods. Chief among them were the rare plants grown from Earth's many heritage seed libraries. But in 2183, the colonists faced a true test of their character. Eden Prime was attacked by the rogue spectre Saren Arterius and his Geth allies. Not long after, the Citadel was attacked by those same forces, and Eden Prime's neighboring world of Terra Nova found itself threatened with complete destruction. Faced with such a violence, a lesser citizenry may have retreated back to the safety of Earth, as many colonists of Terra Nova did, but Eden Prime's governing body refused to give in. Not only did the colonists vote overwhelmingly to block a measure calling for the building of evacuation ships, they voted to ease restrictions on immigrants from Terra Nova looking for a new home. As a result, Eden Prime's population has swelled. Whatever the war might bring, its status as a symbol of humanity's future in the stars remains unblemished. Technology, Protean Beacon. In 2183, human scientists uncovered a Protean technological artifact on the planet of Eden Prime. While repelling the attack by Saren Arterius' Geth allies, Commander Shepard's squad came into the artifact's proximity and set it off. The object, described as a beacon, sent the commander jumbled sounds and images intended to warn of the imminent Reaper invasion. The beacon overloaded during the process and violently exploded. While the vision it provided was dismissed by the Citadel Council as highly subjective experience, since that time, Council's Committee on Paleotechnology have analyzed the fragments of the beacon in effort to understand how it communicated. What they found was not quite the telepathic technology that the Alliance Marines described in the reports. The beacon was equipped with a mass effect field generator to hold its subject immobile, a necessary step to minimize collateral damage during the rest of the process. The beacon then nearly instantaneously scanned the structure of the target's optic and auditory nerves, as well as many parts of the brain responsible for memory. Once its expert system determined the proportions of these key features, the beacon stimulated them with pinpoint electromagnetic and other irradiative energy, using powerful programs to recreate any images or sounds the beacon required. In principle, this was very similar to a popular entertainment device known as a SimStim, but vastly more comprehensive. SimStims direct the senses, not memory. The Normandy's medical officer noted that the beacon delivered more information over a space of seconds than a SimStim could do in hours, and managed to do so to a species whose physiology was completely unknown to its designers. To a paleotech, the fact that Commander Shepard needed assistance to decipher the message is a minor footnote compared to the Protean's accomplishment, getting any message to Shepard at all. Well, I happen to disagree. As I talked about, this was one of the dumbest ways to try and convey a message to a future cycle. They literally recording a video meant to be viewed with your freaking eyes would have been a much more effective way of conveying information. Pictures, simple pictures drawn on or printed on a piece of paper or whatever. Paper probably not, because paper wouldn't have survived tens of thousands of years, but physical, tangible drawings would have been better than the beacon. The beacon kind of sucked. Organizations, Cerberus, Atlas. With the Atlas, Cerberus's research arm has combined the deadly armor and firepower of a Ymir mech with the tactical superiority of a trained human pilot. An Element Zero core allows the Atlas to be airdropped onto the battlefield with minimal impact damage. Its thick armor includes a robust transparent canopy made from polycrystalline composite proprietary to Cerberus. Alliance engineers hypothesize that the material is some kind of synthetic sapphire composed with interlayers to resist cracking and thermal damage. Although the Atlas is somewhat unwieldy in the field, its anti-personnel machine guns and ability to shrug off damage from anything short of heavy weapons makes it a fearsome opponent. Heavy loss of life is to be expected in any unprepared encounter with this unit. Cerberus Centurion. Centurions are Cerberus's frontline tacticians. They are meant to enact the Elusive Men's strategic goals, although it is clear that they have leeway to adapt as the encounter develops. The only useful intelligence that the Alliance has gathered on the Centurions relates to their armament. Each Centurion carries an M96 Mattock heavy rifle modified to launch smoke grenades, leaving enemies vulnerable to crossfire. Cerberus Engineer. Cerberus Combat Engineers are specialized support units that assist primary forces while staying out of the light of fire. They wear lighter armor than the typical Cerberus combatant, using a modified mesh that allows greater mobility. Under cover and out of sight, engineers focus on setting up and maintaining turrets, as well as repairing mechanical units or armored allies. When confronted, they return fire only as long as it takes them to find cover again, and let the frontline combat personnel to take over. Although engineers are not particularly dangerous on their own, the Alliance specifically warns troops to remain alert for turrets, which can mow down entire squad while the engineer escapes. A Cerberus Guardian. Guardians, the Cerberus equivalent of human tanks, are slow-moving soldiers who carry enormous polycrystalline composite shields. The weight of the shield requires an armored suit equipped with hydraulic assist and a dedicated power supply. Combining this with exceptional protection with a suite of enviromapping systems, Guardians focus on flanking opponents to flush them from cover. The Guardians' slow but relentless approach is intended to demoralize the enemy, as well as draw their fire, but rip away their shield, and the Guardian becomes little more than a cannon fodder. Cerberus Nemesis. The Nemesis is a Cerberus sniper specialist. Customized implants allowed the Nemesis to withstand the crippling kickback of the M98 Widow anti-material rifle, turning a redoubtable opponent into a force capable of inflicting instant death. A suite of high-tech scanning equipment makes the sniper adept at maintaining cover, meaning that a Nemesis is usually spotted only after opening fire, assuming the target survives the first round. Because of the self-destruct mechanisms that activate upon the sniper's death, the Alliance never retrieved any example of the Nemesis augmentation technology. This fact, combined with the Cerberus' force's penchant for suicide when faced with capture, has made scientific study of their implants impossible. Cerberus Trooper. Assault troopers are the backbone of Cerberus' forces. Those candidates who make it through the grueling basic training are submitted to an intensive psychological program that renders them fearless, disciplined, and unrelenting. Outfitted with the custom-designed armor and rifles, these soldiers function with determined precision and practice teamwork. The first to rush into a fight, assault troopers often work in tandem with more powerful units. They make strategic use of this scenario, keeping their opponents occupied until it's too late to react to the combined Cerberus force bearing down on them. Mercenaries Blue Suns. I read that actually in Mass Effect 2, as well as this. Planets and locations. I read that. Benning. Benning was once a thriving human colony, but the Reapers have rounded up a large portion of the populace for processing. Some pockets of civilian resistance still elude the Reapers, however, and rescue attempts are underway. A resistance radio established during the early days of the attack continues to broadcast, exhorting survivors to band together and discussing rumors of safe havens. Unfortunately, the rumors have begun to result in ambushes, increasing the desperation of those who remain free. Through it all, Benning's automated agricultural systems have continued to operate, leading to unprecedented stores of food in the planet's granaries and warehouses. Feros, I read that. Freedom's Progress, Haystorm, Ilium, Ilos, Corlus, Noveria, Omega, Pragia, Rakana, Sanctum. Sanctum is known for the freezing ice storms which swept across its poles and temperate zones, with only a thin strip of habitable land along the equator. Because of those harsh living conditions, Sanctum attracts only the most gruff and hardy, from miners to mercenaries to company men. Mining, referred to as ice cracking, anywhere but at the equator, is the backbone of Sanctum's economy. The planet is rich in platinum and palladium deposits, as well as boron, which is locally used in semiconductor doping. Sanctum's corporate factions have learned that Cerberus is involved in the planet's finances. Systems Alliance intelligence agents embedded within the corporate strata are quietly urging the companies to confront Cerberus directly, but so far financial bickering has kept Sanctum's major stakeholders from acting against the Elusive Men. Terminus Systems, Red Dot, Migrant Fleet, Perseus Vale, Vermeer. Ships and Vehicles. FTL Drive, Red Dot, and that as well. Technology. The Shroud. What the Krogan called the Shroud is a technological remnant of the Salarian uplift. After Tuchanka's nuclear war released tons of smoke and dust into the atmosphere, the planet temporarily cooled from global dimming, except at the poles where the albedo was lowered by soot. As clouds trapped the resulting heat, enormous swaths of permafrost melted, releasing methane captured in the clathrates from previous millennia. The potent greenhouse gas created a runaway heat cycle that was called the nuclear summer. Without intervention, Tuchanka would have sunk into a slow but certain mass extinction. The Salarian solution was to assemble the Shroud, a permanent sun shield of trillion of tiny diffractory lenses placed at the L1 Lagrange point. the point in space where the lens's naturally stable orbit would shade the planet. The Salarians settled on a delivery method that became known as the Shroud Towers. The towers were essentially enormous coil guns that could fire a payload of lenses into space, along with the equipment necessary to monitor the payload's trajectories. Many Krogan warlords enthusiastically approved the plan because they believed in saving their homeworld. Some because they believed in saving their homeworld, but most because they saw future military applications for the Shroud Towers. The Shroud was completed on schedule over the next few decades, by which time the Rachni held the world's full attention. The Krogan rebellions were not kind to the Shroud Towers. All but one were destroyed during the push for Krogan demilitarization. The remaining tower, often referred to as the Shroud, even though it is technically incorrect, was repurposed for cloud seeding and atmospheric repair. It remains on the landscape as an anachronism, a symbol of the time when the Krogan and the Salarians helped themselves by aiding one another. Artifacts. The Citadel Council has called for the immediate donation of protein artifacts to bolster the war effort, primarily items of Reaper origins and recordings of their attacks. The Exogeny Corporation set an example by donating a store of newly discovered paleontological technology and releasing the data archives of deep space research colonies destroyed by the Reapers. Several private collectors have since stepped forward to donate the entirety of their collections, but despite an offer of amnesty for anyone concealing such artifacts, not everyone responded as the Council hoped. Several artifacts have been found in obscure underground markets on safe haven worlds, presumably sold by the newly arrived refugees who needed funds to survive. Reports say that smugglers continue to sell stolen artifacts, and armed raids on archaeological sites have rendered even legal operations extremely hazardous. After several reports of mercenary groups turning on the archaeologists who hired them, Elanus Risk Control Services began to offer security details for archaeological sites at a considerably reduced rate. Artificial Intelligence and VI, I read those two entries. The Reaper War, the Fall of Earth. The Reapers took Earth in a matter of hours. The Alliance knew that the first wave would arrive from Batarian space, but they were unprepared for the speed and scale of the attack. The Reapers bypassed the 6th and 7th fleets at Terra Nova and Eden Prime, flying straight from relay to relay, where they could be neither tracked nor intercepted. The tactic was unexpected, since the navies of organic species would never risk coming out of FTL within combat range, or leaving enemies at their backs to threaten supply lines. At Arcturus Station, more than a dozen Reaper capital ships engaged the Alliance 2nd, 3rd and 5th fleets. This was mere screening for the main force. Dozens more of capital ships continued through the Charon Relay, where the 1st fleet has been lying in wait, but was soon destroyed. The 4th fleet near Earth had a few minutes of advance warning. It stood no better chance. After destroying the Earth's combuoys, smaller Reaper destroyers wiped out all GPS and communication satellites in the Earth orbit and cut the undersea fiber optic cables that linked the continents. Earth's resistance now relies on outdated radio towers and a few quantum-entangled communicators whose matched pairs happen to be on other continents or outside the Sol system. Communication is so limited that the fate of entire nations remains unknown. The capital ships bombarded defense installations and industrial centers, annihilating entire cities with populations in the low millions, including Adelaide, Hamburg, Aljubil, and Fort Worth. Meanwhile, Reaper destroyers descended into the atmosphere to melt roads and capture population centers with minimal loss of life. This is not an example of the Reapers being merciful. More likely, they are herding their prey to make the coming harvest that much easier. The fall of Karshan. For every 1,000 Batarian refugees, there are 1,001 stories about how the Reapers invaded the Batarian systems. A few elements are common to almost every version, however. The Reapers first arrived in the Vular system and immediately destroyed its communications network. The Hegemony Department of Information Control blamed the loss of signal on space weather, but scrambled ships to the system nonetheless. Within a day, the Reaper capital ships appeared in the Harsa system and descended on the Batarian homeworld Karshan. For all the rhetoric about the hegemony's military prowess, the response to the Reapers was uncoordinated. Moments after the information minister took to the extranet and announced that unknown ships were destroying all space traffic near Karshan, the defense minister declared that there was no reason to panic. The planet's convoys were destroyed next, creating an ominous silence that has persisted ever since. Fearing they were next, the Batarian colonies across the hegemony space began evacuations. So many refugees poured into human-occupied Exodus cluster that Systems Alliance officials at first thought that the Batarians were invading. More systems have gone dark as their convoys were destroyed, and million more Batarians, trapped on their planets, sit waiting for the Reapers. The Battle of Palaven. When Tetrus fell, the Turians knew little about the Reapers except that they wanted to engage the Turians. Staying calm, the Turians massed in force around Palaven, their homeworld. Fleet Admiral Irix Coronati, in what became known as the 15-minute plan, stationed only 2 carriers, Undaunted and Resolute, near the system's relay. When the Reaper fleet emerged, the carriers launched swarms of unmanned fighters and spy drones. These were quickly destroyed, but the drones transmitted vital data on the Reaper's effective range, fleet composition, and exact location. The Turians' other ships then deployed to defend their system in earnest. Knowing that the Reaper's weapons had a longer effective range than any of their own, Coronati made a short, daring FTL jump, leading his dreadnoughts in the middle of the Reaper fleet. The dreadnoughts then turned to line up their main guns on the Reapers, which also needed to fire on the Turians. This ploy used the Reaper's size against them. Because they could turn faster, the Turian dreadnoughts locked targets first, and their concentrated firepower downed several Reaper capital ships. The Reapers countered instantly. Their destroyers performed a jump of their own to the skies above Palaven, beginning orbital strikes on Turian cities. The Turians, forced to defend their planet, found themselves in a pitched battle far from the relay, from which emerged a seemingly endless line of Reaper ships. After massive casualties, Coronati ordered retreat. The Turians insist that Palaven is not lost. The battle has merely moved to the ground. Reaper troop transports have dumped hordes of husks to capture Palaven's inhabitants, but met with little success. Reaper capital ships are destroying city after city, but much of the Turian fleet is still operable, and the citizenry is heavily armed. The Turians refuse to be intimidated. The Reapers. Harvesting. Even with all of the Reaper's power, harvesting every sapient species in the entire galaxy can take decades or even centuries. The most time-consuming part of the process is the gathering DNA from the population. To accelerate the effort, the Reapers follow a consistent procedure. Victims who cooperate, surrender, or are captured by husks are sorted into camps. It is believed that husks possess receptors that allow them to analyze a victim's DNA through sight, smell, or touch. Victims that meet their standards are herded into camps, from the camps into processor ships. Those the husks deem insufficient are either turned into husks themselves or indoctrinated to serve as slave labor. The Reapers use the last option to give their victims false hope. Many captives who would otherwise fight back become docile when they see members of their own kind obey and survive. The processor ships reduce victims to a transportable liquid. Like a slaughterhouse, the ship's design prevents victims from seeing or hearing what happens elsewhere so that they do not panic. The victims are ushered into locking pods, then rent apart and dissolved into paste that is flushed to storage vats. The rate of killing is phenomenal. Intelligence estimates suggest that there are more than 400 processor ships on Earth, killing approximately 1.86 million humans per day. In combination with battlefield deaths, disease, and famine, the pace will result in complete depopulation of Earth within a decade. As the husks and indoctrinated slaves build more slaughtering facilities, the kill rate can only increase. Reaper capabilities. The Reapers are technologically superior to the organic races of the galaxy, but the degree of superiority is a matter of debate in the intelligence community. The Reaper's thrusters and FTL drives appear to propel them at more than twice the speed of Citadel ships. Estimates of their location in dark space suggest that they can travel nearly 30 light-years in a 24-hour period. Reaper power sources seem to violate known physical laws. Reapers usually destroy fuel infrastructure rather than attempting to capture it intact, indicating that the Reapers do not require organic species energy supplies. Consequently, the Reapers attack without a regard for maintaining supply lines behind them, except to move husks from one planet to another. Unlike Citadel ships, the Reapers do not appear to discharge static buildup from their drive cores, although they sometimes appear wreathed in static discharge when they land on planets. The main gun on the Reaper capital ship dwarfs that of the Alliance-class Everest-class Dreadnought. No Dreadnought has yet survived a direct hit from the weapon. Estimates put the destructive power anywhere from 132 to 454 kilotons of TNT. Even if the target is hardened, as in the case of surface-based missile silo, the gun can instead bury the target beneath molten metal. Precise targeting computers and correctors also give Reaper weapons a longer effective range than the Organics Dreadnoughts or Cruisers. The kinetic barriers on a Reaper capital ship can shrug off the firepower of a small fleet. Weapons specifically designed to overcome shields, such as the Javelin, Guardian lasers, or the Thanix series, can bypass the barriers to some degree. The difficulty is getting close enough to use them. The surface-mounted weaponry on Reaper ships, similar in principle to the Guardian, presents an effective defense against organic species fighters. Reaper vulnerabilities. Although clearly technologically superior to the Citadel forces, the Reapers have experienced casualties in battles across the galaxy. This indicates that theoretically, with the right intelligence, weapons, and strategy, the Reapers could be defeated. Unlike the Mass Effect relays that they created, Reapers do not have quantum shields. Locking itself down at a quantum level would leave the Reaper unaware of its surroundings until the shielding deactivated. Instead, Reapers rely on kinetic barriers. In the case of a Reaper capital ships, these kinetic barriers can hold off the firepower of 2 Dreadnoughts simultaneously, but 3 clearly causes a strain, and 4 typically results in destruction. Weapons designed to maximize heat damage, such as the Thanix series, show better results against the Reapers than pure kinetic impacts. The barriers of a Reaper destroyer are less formidable than those of capital ships. It is possible for a single cruiser or many fighters to disable or demolish a destroyer if they can get within range before they themselves are destroyed. The Reaper's energy sources are not infinite. For example, to land on a planet, a Reaper must substantially reduce its mass. This transfer of power to its main Mass Effect generators leaves the Reaper's kinetic barriers at only a partial strength. Sovereign was destroyed while assuming the control over Saren. This feedback from Saren's death seemed to entirely overload Sovereign's shields. Current Reapers do not seem to suffer from this design flaw. Reaper capital ships can turn faster than Citadel Dreadnoughts, but to do so, they must lower their mass to an unacceptable level in combat situation. Consequently, it is possible for a Dreadnought to emerge from FTL travel behind a capital ship, then bring its guns to bear faster than the Reaper can return fire. This is a poor tactic, however, against Reapers flying in proper formation. Now, to be honest, this only highlights how stupid it is for Reapers to land on a planet, because they are literally weaker if they do that. It says here that if they land, they must divert power from their shields, which makes it easier to destroy them. Like, one of them on Tuchanka was literally killed by a bug. Like, how stupid must you be to do that? Because it didn't need to do it. All it had to do was sit in orbit over that point where the shroud is and just relentlessly bombard it. Or better yet actually, it didn't even need to guard it. It just needed to destroy it before we got there, and then we couldn't have cured the genophage. So overall, that was pretty dumb. Weapons, armor, and equipment. Body armor, red dot, kinetic barriers, mass accelerators, small arms, tech armor, and fortification. I don't think I read that. Although body armor and kinetic barriers provide significant protection for relatively low cost, technically savvy soldiers sometimes go further. Tech armor is a common term for a complex series of field generators that disrupt incoming force using a stationary warp effect. The theory is that bullets would normally shatter on impact instead of break apart when they strike the field. The field then bleeds away the shrapnel's kinetic energy. The standard design for tech armor traps the warp field between two low-yield kinetic barriers to protect the user from the field itself. When the outer barrier fails, the warp effect is discharged, potentially harming anyone nearby. For this reason, many soldiers modify their armor with a haptic-style light to warn allies not to get too close. On missions where stealth is paramount, the effect is disabled. Cynical soldiers joke that the design is called tech armor because if it were simply called warp armor, no one would use it. The fortification approach uses high-energy batteries and superconductive devices within the armor to create a Foucault current effect, essentially a magnetic field that can immobilize metals, even non-ferrous ones. The field is triggered by sensors similar to those in a kinetic barrier. It is powerful enough to protect against most modern weapons, but there are drawbacks. The currents use metallic objects to hold their position relative to one another, and although the field only lasts for a split second, it creates resistance that can slow or fatigue the wearer. Without a specialized training, a soldier can quickly become exhausted or stumble at the wrong time. Okay, so that's all of the Codex entries. Normal gameplay will resume next time, but for now, that's all for this one. I will see you in the next one. Bye!